Αγαπητοί συνάδελφοι, φίλες και φίλοι, καλώς ήρθατε και σε αυτό το απόγευμα της Δευτέρας για την 16η διάλεξη του δεύτερου κύκλου διαλέξεων για τη διαμεσολάβηση, που διοργανώνουμε όπως ξέρετε. Σας εύχομαι καλή εβδομάδα και εύχομαι να είστε όλοι καλά. Σήμερα θα έχουμε ως ομιλητή έναν εξαιρετικό διεθνούς φήμης διαμεσολαβητή, ο οποίος θα σας πω τα βασικά σημεία του βιογραφικού του αργότερα, αλλά από τώρα να σας πω ότι έχει κάνει 2.000 διαμεσολαβήσεις. Ο κύριος Leonardo είναι Ιταλός διαμεσολαβητής, θα ακούσετε το σύντομο βιογραφικό του αργότερα, και ο τίτλος της διάλεξης που θα μας κάνει σήμερα είναι Lessons Learned After 1,5 mediations in Italy. Έχουν γίνει δηλαδή στην Ιταλία 1,5 εκατομμύριο διαμεσολαβήσεις, από τις οποίες έχει διδαχθεί κάποια πράγματα τα οποία θα μοιραστεί μαζί μας. Mr. D'Urso, hello. I am very pleased to welcome you today and to thank you once again for having accepted my invitation to be today with us and to share with us your experience after 1,5 mediation in Italy. This is particularly important for us because Greek legislation, the new law about mediation, which was promulgated in 2019, has followed almost totally the Italian model. Later on, I will take the opportunity to put you the question, what are the difference between the two models? For the moment being, I will present you shortly the Hellenic Union of Mediators, which is the first association of mediators to have been created in Greece in August 2010, 5 months before the first law on mediation was promulgated in Greece, by means of which Greek legislation has introduced in Greece the directive, the EU directive 2008-52-2008, and we have 120 members approximately. The main goal of our articles of incorporation or articles of association is to promote mediation and to help mediation to establish in Greece, to be known in Greece, to expand in Greece, and of course our other goal is to protect the interest of the mediators. Besides the Hellenic Union of Mediators, besides these goals which I have mentioned, or more precisely, in view of the achievement of these goals, we have organized many events in Attica and out of Attica, presenting mediation, presenting more mediations, and allowing people to get familiarized with this alternative dispute resolution method. In 2019, we have organized many events, but after that, in 2020, COVID came, and it was not possible anymore, as you know, to make face-to-face events. So we have started using Zoom and making lectures like the one we are doing today to allow mediators first to remain connected to mediation, then to get more information and listen to mediators with international experience, which are shared with us. And in that way, we have been able to organize In total, as of September 2020, up to now, 30 speeches. The speakers were Greek mediators and also mediators from other countries, America, England, Italy, today with you. I make a parenthesis here to tell you, Leonardo, that I have followed you, all your speeches last summer you have done, and I was really delighted. This is not a compliment. I close the parenthesis to present you further ΟΠΕΜΕΔ, in collaboration with which we are preparing and presenting these lectures. ΟΠΕΜΕΔ is a very big organization constituted in 2015. The members of ΟΠΕΜΕΔ, the founders of ΟΠΕΜΕΔ, are the most important social organizations, such as the Hellenic Banks Union, the Association of Industrial Companies, bilateral commercial institutes, commercial chambers, and the most important social partners. Besides the Hellenic Union of Mediators, there is another association of mediators. The Hellenic Union of Mediators is based in Athens. The other association, which is called SEDI, is located in Thessaloniki, and we have very good relationship. We work together when we have the opportunity, and we have the same goals, in fact. So, this having been said, I would like you to allow me to present you in Greek to the audience. Thank you very much. Λοιπόν, αγαπητοί φίλες και φίλοι, με συγχωρείτε που μίλησα στην αγγλική, αλλά ήθελα να παρουσιάσω την Ελληνική Ένωση Διαμεσολαβητών και τον ΟΠΕΜΕΔ και τον ΣΕΔΙ στον κύριο Λεωνάρντο Ντούρσο. Τώρα θα μιλήσω στα αγγλικά, στα ελληνικά με τη συνένεσή του, για να σας παρουσιάσω εκείνον. Λοιπόν, ο κύριος Leonardo Ντούρσο είναι ένας πλήρους απασχόλησης διαμεσολαβητής, συνιδρυτής και διευθύνων σύμβουλος του ADR Center, καθηγητής στο Strauss Institute για την εναλλακτική επίλυση διαφορών στο Pepperdine University που εδρεύει στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες και συγκεκριμένα στην Καλιφόρνια και πιο συγκεκριμένα στην τοποθεσία Μαλιμπού. Είναι επίσης μέλος του Διοικητικού Συμβουλίου της του Ιδρύματος, Weinstein International, με τον τίτλο Mediating a Better Future. Επί 23 χρόνια διεξάγει, χρησιμοποιεί τις εναλλακτικές μεθόδους επίλυσης διαφορών και στα πλαίσια αυτά, όπως σας είπα και προηγουμένως, έχει διαμεσολαβήσει σε 2.000 δύσκολες αστικές και εμπορικές υποθέσεις, εργατικές υποθέσεις και διευκόλυνε πολλές διαδικασίες δημοσίων διαλόγων. Στο πεδίο της συμβουλευτικής, η σημερινή του επικέντρωση, ο σημερινός του στόχος είναι να εξελίξει, να δημιουργήσει, να αναπτύξει στρατηγικές διαδικασίες εναλλακτικών μεθόδων επίλυσης διαφορών για κυβερνήσεις, Υπουργεία Δικαιοσύνης και μεγάλες οργανώσεις και να συντάξει αποτελεσματικά πλαίσια νομοθετικά προκειμένου να αυξήσει την προσφυγή στη διαμεσολάβηση και να βελτιώσει την ποιότητα των υπηρεσιών διαμεσολάβησης. Από το 2017 έως το 2019 υπήρξε επιστημονικός εμπειρογνώμονας για την ομάδα εργασίας σχετικά με τη διαμεσολάβηση στο Συμβούλιο της Ευρώπης και επίσης μετέχει στην ομάδα που επελέγει για να δημιουργηθεί μια ειδική ομάδα εμπειρογνωμόνων σχετικά με τη διαμεσολάβηση. Έχει οριστεί ως διαμεσολαβητής σε υψηλού επίπεδου εργατικές διαφορές στα πλαίσια ευρωπαϊκών δημοσίων φορέων και είναι από την Ευρωπαϊκή Τράπεζα για την Ανασυγκρότηση και την Ανάπτυξη ως αμερόληπτος και ανεξάρτητος εμπειρογνώμονας. Από το 1998 επελέγει ως βασικός εμπειρογνώμονας σε πολλά προγράμματα διεθνή σχετικά με τους εναλλακτικούς τρόπους επίλυσης διαφορών στην Αφρική, την Ασία, την Κεντρική Αμερική, την Ευρώπη. Ειδικά υπήρξε ένας από τους επικεφαλής εμπειρογνώμονες σε ένα διετές επιτυχημένο πρόγραμμα για την δημιουργία του πρώτου κέντρου διαμεσολάβησης για εμπορικές διαφορές στην Καμπούλ του Αφγανιστάν. Τα πιο πρόσφατα προγράμματα στα οποία μετήχε έχουν ως στόχο να βοηθήσει την αναδιάρθρωση της νομοθεσίας για τη διαμεσολάβηση και να αυξήσει την ικανότητα στην διεξαγωγή διαμεσολαβήσεων στο Αμπιτζάν, στη Μολδαβία, στη Σερβία, στο Ομάν, Τζαμάικα, Ιορδανία, Τουρκία και Ζάμπια με βάση το ιταλικό μοντέλο διαμεσολάβησης, το οποίο σήμερα θα έχουμε την ευκαιρία να ακούσουμε τον κύριο Ντούρσο να μας εξηγεί, διότι εν πολλοίς, και αυτό είναι εξαιρετικά σημαντικό, διότι εν πολλοίς ο νόμος 4640 ακολούθησε το ιταλικό μοντέλο. Λοιπόν, εύχομαι να απολαύσετε τη διάλεξη αυτή και τη διάλεξη αυτή, να αξιοποιήσετε την παρουσία του κυρίου Ντούρσο, να του θέσετε ερωτήσεις και να μπορέσετε να μοιραστείτε την εμπειρία του μαζί του, την εμπειρία του να τη μοιραστούμε όλοι μας μαζί του, διότι οπωσδήποτε θα βγούμε ωφελημένοι και πιο πλούσιοι σε γνώσεις σχετικά με τη διαμεσολάβηση. Leonardo, welcome again. Thank you again for being here, and you have the floor.
First, thank you very much for your kind invitation. It's always a pleasure to talk even now online with colleagues from Greece, where I think I spend a lot of time in trying to share our experience, my personal experience and experience of Italy. And I was very happy that your law on mediation is shaped around our experience, the Italian mediation model, with on the center of the law this first mandatory meeting. What I would like to, and this talk is very on time, because after years and years, just this week, the new government is introducing some amendments of our law based on, and this is the title of my talk, about 1.5 million of mediations that we had since 2010 and 2013 after the reform. Of course, it's not all my mediations, are the mediation held in all Italy. So what we learned, as I think what we learned and what we are going to amend could be relevant also for you. We learned, first of all, that there are too much politics involved in mediation, in making of the law. And from we had, I heard that you had as well, while mediation is clear that it's working and works for individuals, for the lawyers, for all the jurisdictions, but we had a lot of internal politics in the parliament, at the Ministry of Justice. So for this reason, in the last two governments in Italy, based about 6 years, we didn't have any changes in the law. And this was a mistake, because we know that this law should be kind of open to amendments, to trial and errors, that when you write the law, is impossible to know what is working and what is not working. So you need to have, a committee, with important role to gather information, gather quantitative and qualitative feedback, and propose some changes. So this should be kept in mind. And we made a mistake. Actually, no, our politicians, because the last two ministers of justice, I have to say, they were not really interested in mediation. They took different, changes, but both of them, have to say, is not a secret, but they didn't like mediation because they didn't understand mediation. What it changed was during in the last, as you know, it's about 3-4 months that we have a new government led by Mr. Mario Draghi, and that he appointed a new Minister of Justice that is not a politician by career. She was a professor of constitutional courts, of constitutional law, and was a member of our constitutional court, a lady, and she is very sensible to mediation in different fields, in criminal matters and in civil matters. So one of the first action that she took when he was in office was looking at the statistics on mediations and appoint a committee on the Ministry of Justice. This is like 2 months ago. And this is because we have to make some reforms in order to get the money from what we call the recovery funds from the Commission. I think it's similar what you had, in a different terms, actually, a few years ago. As you may know, Italy was very badly hurt from the economic consequence and, of course, health consequence of the COVID-19. And we are going to have to receive from the Commission, for the European Commission, about 220 billions of euro, but with some conditions to make reforms, something that you had, I think, a few years ago. And one of the main reforms, I think one of the first reforms that we should do is civil justice. And on civil justice, there was a commitment of our government to reinforce mediation, to increase the number of mediation. Even that we had quite a good numbers, our commitment is now to increase further the number of mediations every year from the incoming cases and pending cases in courts. So for making this commitment, the government, as I was telling you, appointed a commission, a committee, and this committee handed very rapidly their work in 2 months. Just few weeks ago, they turned out their results, their recommendations. And these recommendations, just this week, the government will present at the parliament to amend our law. on mediation to reinforce and just to correct the different things, not too many, but different things that needed to be corrected in our law to make what I think almost perfect. As you know, I mean, we share this a good balance between mandatory and voluntary mediation. So this first meeting on mandatory mediation worked very well, but we had some problem. One of the problem was at the beginning, really beginning, the invited party that they didn't show up during the first meetings. At the beginning, a few years ago, the statistics were about 30%. 30%. I don't know what are your statistics. And by the way, I want just to to talk about only 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then give you any chance to have questions, to make questions, and to have open a debate. So about a few years ago, we had only 30% of parties, the invited parties that show up during the first meeting. But year by year, this percentage increased. And now the last statistics nationwide are 47%, mostly 50%. Of course, depend by mediation provider, public or private, but about 50% of the time, the invited party show up during this first meeting. And in Italy, these first meetings is it costs most of the time 50 euro per party, each party, and we give these we provide these first meetings that could be 10 minutes or 1 hour, 2 hours. Is really up to the parties. Already in the law, in our law, original law, there is a provision that the judge can sanction the party that didn't show up without a motivation, a justificable reason. And we had in the last 10 years a lot of jurisprudence of judge that sanctions parties like insurance company, banks, or municipality. It was a very a big case in the municipality of Rome, where I am from. A few years ago, a judge from Rome, from the court of Rome, sanctions the municipality of Rome's up to 10,000 euro just because they never show up during the first meeting, and based on that sanction, the municipality of Rome appointed from the legal department some people that always show up during the first meetings when they are invited to mediation. So how we can increase the participation of the first meeting? First of all, these new amendments are increasing the fiscal advantage and tax advantage. They put aside a fund of 62 million euro each year, 62 million euro each year, for covering with tax credits the mediation fees and lawyer fees. I want to point it out, up to 600 euro per party from the parties that they decide to attend the first meetings and to go further the first meetings. So every person or companies have up to 600 euro of tax credit. So basically they can deduct from the tax next year up to 600 euro, not only for mediation fees, but also from the fees from lawyers that assist the parties in mediation. So this, I think, is a great advantage. And also they basically doubled all other fiscal advantage related to mediation. Up to, again, there is a fund of 63 million euro each year. And then to increase the what we call effective participation of the first meeting, another amendment is making clear that the parties themselves, they have to attend the first meeting with the assistance of the lawyers. In Italy, when the first meeting is mandatory, the presence of lawyers is always mandatory as well. We notice, and I agree, I think it's very important that lawyers are present, is a huge help for the mediators. However, we find out that if only the lawyers are present, there are little chance that the parties go ahead in full mediation after the first meetings. So now the law, one amendment is making clear that the parties themselves, they have to be present with the assistance of the lawyer. The lawyer cannot be or cannot represent and assist at the same time. So you cannot tell a lawyer to represent the parties and assist. There should be two different persons, okay? And then one amendment makes clear that, and this was written especially for insurance companies and banks, that the person that will represent the company usually must be knowledge of the case. We had a lot of times when the parties that represent banks and insurance company or other big companies, they show up in mediation, but they don't have any clue of the dispute. They said, okay, the legal department gave me this case 2 days ago. I have no idea. So let's go to court. So now again, it is clear. So, and while the sanctions are the same. So the judge, if of course the mediation failed, can sanction the parties again, if they didn't show up or they show up with a person there was no knowledge of the case. But if you show up in the first meetings, you comply with the mandatory part. So again, the mandatory part is always showing up in the first meetings. Never go ahead with full mediation. Another correction, I think is important correction of the amendments, is the representation of the public administration. We notice like that the public administrations, like municipalities or public companies, they were again, they were not prepared to mediate, and people that represent the public administration, they didn't want to take the responsibilities to settle. So basically the approach was, let's go to court. If the court will decide against the public administration, no one will take the responsibilities. It's the judge that decides. But if the representative of public administration sign a document, in tomorrow we have a court of accounts can sanction me and why I settled this case. So we made clear that the representatives, basically public employees, should be present if they are called in mediation, and they can settle. In mediation. Another amendments that we will take is to review the fees, the mediation fees. Of course, 50 euro for the first meeting is nothing. We do for free basically in the first meeting, and the parties they are not. I think they are not taking seriously the mediation. So on one side, they put this at tax advantage. So basically up to 600, it will be free. 600 euro, it will be free through these tax credits. On the other side, we are going to review our fees, and this will be up to the Minister of Justice to decide how much will be in the first meeting. So the idea is having a fee that is kind of an anticipation of the full fee. So you will pay something like, of course, based on the value of the case, you can pay 100 or 200 euro. And if the party they don't want to go ahead with full mediation, you don't have to pay anything. But again, you can have a tax credit. But if you go ahead, this 10 or 200 euro will be deducted from the full fee. So this is some of the amendments that they are going to be approved very soon. Let me read others that are quite important. There are quite few. Of course, one important new amendment is the extension of the dispute types. In Italy, the dispute types under the first mandatory meetings are about only 15% of the whole dispute types of commercial and civil dispute types. So again, based on the statistics, the amendments is to expand these dispute types to what we call long-term commercial agreements, like franchising, distributorships. So all contracts, commercial contracts that have a long-term relationship between among the parties. And so I think this is an important, and there will be monitoring every 5 years to understand if in the future is the full voluntary mediation will sustain themselves. So far, and this is another lesson, 85% of all our mediations comes from the first meeting. Even if there are in some dispute types, the vast majority comes for the first meeting. The only 10% comes from the what we call the voluntary dispute types. Why? I think it's simple, something that I'm sure that you have experienced. The core of our model is pushing the parties in the same room at the same time. That's it, simple. With the help, of course, a mediator, but in a neutral space. And then they can take informed decisions to go ahead with full mediation. This is very important. Why? Because the parties realize that simple, they do not meet. They do not have any occasion to meet a neutral space. No one wants to meet in the office of the other lawyers. For example, we had in parallel a few years ago, this was another big lessons. few years ago in some other dispute types, we have introduced what we call assisted negotiation. So in some dispute types, like credits, pending credits, so up to 50,000 euro, the parties have to start an assisted negotiation between the two lawyers before going to court. So the two lawyers needed to to start some negotiation, but without meeting and without the assistance of a third mediator, a third party. So this provision failed a lot. We had only few hundreds of cases resolved in assisted negotiation without a mediator. It was only worked only quite well in some divorce and separation, but because basically when there was not big conflicts and there was the issue was just to formally sign the papers. So again, this is central for. I mean, the first meetings worked very well, and the core is just in letting the parties meet in a neutral space with assistance of a mediators. So the new Minister of Justice realized that to put more pressure on these first meetings and then let the parties to decide what they want, if they want to go ahead to opt in or to opt out. So this pressure, that could be pull and push. There was a pressure by increase the sanctions, but also to increase the fiscal advantages. And we will see what is going to happen. But again, another provision is to be another lessons to be very monitoring results. So it's very keen in monitoring the results, the statistics. I think it's very important to make statistics clear. Unfortunately, our statistics you can find in the Mr. Justice website, also in English, are very confusing. It's not easy to understand. So we will propose to make easier to understand and to distribute it again to monitoring, in order to monitoring the results of the law. We have also find out that our system based on providers, that is, I know that is different from Greece. I think you don't have providers, centers, while all our systems is based on accredited mediation centers where mediators need to work, and this was confirmed. This was confirmed because I think, of course, we don't know the counter proof. We don't know how it would be without the centers. But for example, from our experience, we in ADR Center now we manage more than 6,000 of mediation every year, and there is a lot of work in the secretariat's work, what we call case management. There is a huge work in receiving the demand, the request of mediation, calling the other side. Sometimes the other side, they want to change the dates, give a neutral space, appoint the mediators, and this, I think, worked very well, and ensure the neutralty of the mediators, because the mediators will, the mediation center will appoint the mediator that is most suitable for the parties. Of course, if the parties will not want to choose their own mediators, but again, 99% of the times the parties, they do not agree in one name, and they let the mediation center decide their name. We have never had problems. We have never had the problems in one parties they didn't like the name of the mediators. And actually, the mediation centers, we are competing on the quality of the service, on the quality of the mediators. Now, after a few years, there are mediation centers that are are getting out of the business because they don't have clients, because they didn't ensure a good quality of the service of case management and mediators. So the market is kind of making their their choice, even if there are more than 500 of centers accredited administrative justice, but now lawyers, they know where to go and which centers they go. And by the way, another experience is not in the law, but it's clear that the lawyers are the gatekeepers, are the lawyers that choose the mediation center on behalf of their clients. And the lawyers are now very happy after 7 years. These amendments, by the way, of course, are pushed not only from the mediators. Of course, we need to push our interest, but also from they are sponsored by the National Association of Lawyers. Lawyers are very happy after 7 years from the 2013, not the first law were full mandatory mediation, but after more than 8 years now, lawyers are happy because they realize that, first of all, 80%, more than 80% of mediators are lawyers, even if everyone can be mediators, basically, not everyone, but with different backgrounds. The reality is 80% of mediators are lawyers. I think 95% of mediations are done with the lawyers present. So lawyers can get the money from being mediators and from representing parties in mediation. And every bar association has its own mediation center. So, and they realized that clients are happy. At the beginning was all lawyers and the bar association were very skeptical, but after 8 years, they are not skeptical anymore. So all these amendments are sponsored also by lawyers association. So let me read other other amendments. Okay, and then another group of amendments is increasing the quality of the mediators by increasing the number of trainings, number of hours of trainings, and increasing also the requirements to become a mediation centers. So I think is important, and to also to provide mediation trainings. Even as I say, the market is making their choice. I think we need to review the requirements to become a mediator and to become a mediation center. This is very important. Actually, sorry, give me one second. Sorry, I am at home and my wife was outside the door. I was waiting.
No problem.
Sorry. Okay. So this basically, and then we can enter in the details. And again, I'm very, very happy to share our knowledge. As you know, we have been, I think, 6 years that we have been training with Elena Kolsaki in Athens. So we shared our experience in mediation techniques with Prometheus, through Prometheus, the Athens Association. And this was important, I think. And actually, the new amendments on trainings are also based on our experience in training. I think we are going in your direction in external assessment exams done by the Ministry of Justice, and our model was too easy because there was not external examination, was internal during the trainings. I think your model is much better. So at the end of the day, we are very happy. I think we in Italy are going to have a very close legislative framework that is going to work kind of perfect, as I said, and I hope that soon will be extended in all dispute types. So and there is another amendment I was forgetting, is to strengthen the power of the judge to order parties to attempt mediation. One of the biggest problem that we have in Italy, and I'm sure in Greece as well, is pending cases. So what I talked so far was incoming cases, in order to decrease the incoming cases to courts. But one problem that I think we share is a huge number of pending cases. And of course, the Minister of Justice, with the money from the recovery fund from the Commission, is going to hire new judges, and this is great. They are going to hire court staff. So there's a huge program of hiring 16,000 of new employees to help the judge with the secretariat support. So basically something that we don't have. In Italy, the judges works alone, basically without any secretariat support. But for doing that, in the law is mentions one great project that I want to mention, that was started a few years ago in Florence, and now it was replied in Perugia as well, and hopefully in other courts. One problem that we had is we recognize through statistics that judges, they didn't refer cases to mediation in good numbers. So very few. Either that it's up to them to decide when they want to refer to mediation, and is not an invitation, is an order. But we had last year about 2,000-3,000 of such orders, not too many. And the problem was, again, that in Italy, the judge they didn't have time to do it, to review the pending cases and write motivation to order the parties to attempt mediation. And the second problem was that they didn't get any credits for productivities. In Italy, judges are evaluated every year by the number of decisions they take. Usually, an average judge of the first instance takes from 200 to up to 250 decisions per year. And if they refer to a case to mediation, and if this mediation settled, they didn't get any credits. It's like doing nothing. So for this reason, in the law now, there is a clear indication that this referral to mediation should be taken in consideration in the evaluation of the judge. And each court, again, can have some protocol, some memorandum of understanding with the local universities, usually local universities, to reply to what, again, this project was started in Florence. So basically in Florence, graduate students in law, no students, graduates, freshmen, basically. So people that got a degree in law can help and can work in courts up to 2 years to help judges to choose pending cases that could be mediated. So basically, they help the judge to write the decision, the order for the parties based on some criteria to refer cases in mediation. After 2 years, this program was very successful in Florence. They basically cut in half the pending cases for each judge. And for this reason, they decided to go nationwide and having these protocols in all courts of Italy, again, to increase referral cases to mediation in pending cases. So basically, that's all, and it was not easy, okay? So again, he needed a political will, even if all the evidence was there, all statistics proves that, of course, we know, I guess that we are all colleagues, and etc. We know the value of mediation for all parties, or the value to attempt a mediation. I think the idea that before going to court and spend the taxpayer, in Italy, 80% of the budget of the courts coming from the taxpayers and 20% for the court fees. So the idea is, before spending 80% of taxpayer, that is about 1 billion, the budget of the courts in Italy are nearly to 1 billion per year, the government, the law can say, before going to a court, please sit down around a table with a mediator. This fee will not, with tax credits now, is done, basically is for free. And then it's your decision. Is your decision to opt in to courts or to opt out. And this model is, again, I think it's different in details. It's very important, the details. This model it will not work alone. This model of the first meetings, as you know, details are important. And one of the main details is, again, to push the parties to attend the first meetings. We have a general provision of good faith. So basically, the parties that they do not attend the first meetings, the judge can sanction because of behaving in bad faith during negotiation, basically. And this is critical. This is a key. I remind you, for example, in Romania, a few years ago, they had a very similar provision, but they forgot these small details. They forgot to give a sanction, a possible sanction, to the invited parties that didn't show up. And their constitutional court declared inconstitutional because the mandatory provision was basically only for the plaintiff, not for the invited parties. So the plaintiff had to attend the first meeting. Otherwise, they cannot file a case in court. But the invited party can, of course, could not attend it. And that model was, I think, rightfully considered unconstitutional. So again, small details that makes difference. This model now is not copied. I mean, in good. I'm saying in good way. Only in Greece, but also in other countries, Turkey, now Serbia, Moldova, Azerbaijan, Spain has a draft very similar to our model, and many other countries. So we hope that our mistakes, because we made a lot of mistakes in Italy in the last couple of decades, but we found out what a model that works very, very well. I will for sure give me a few days. I will translate these amendments in English and give to the association, to Elena as well, in order maybe to have a discussion in your committee and to take in consideration again our new amendments that will be approved for sure. So it's a matter of a couple of months that we will have these changes. So I think it could be a good discussion also for you in Greece, to consider these new changes. So I stop here. Sorry for a long talk. And if you have any comments and any question, please, I am at your disposal.
Thank you very much, Leonardo, for this very interesting lecture. Indeed, there are many similarities between Greek legislation and Italian legislation, and definitely we have to learn from what you have said about the modifications which are to be done shortly.
Αν έχετε... η Έλενα Κολτσάκη σήκωσε πρώτη το χέρι, οπότε έχει το λόγο.
Thank you so much. And congratulations once again, Catherine, and the association for bringing in people that can enlighten our path in mediation. As Leonardo said, we're long acquaintances. We've been working closely together for the last 6 years. And maybe he didn't say that, but he was behind supporting me when I was a member of the law drafting committee. And whenever we had some questions about what went wrong in the Italian mediation model, he was there to provide the answer. So I want to publicly thank him for being behind the scenes and supporting for the introduction of the Italian model into the Greek reality. Of course, I don't want to take up too much of the time, but I want to stress the importance of the new amendments in the law. Leonardo knows, because we'll be discussing this almost on a daily basis, that the Italian law was not very clear about the presence of lawyers, whether they can show up in the first mediation mandatory meeting representing clients. Although that was the scope of the Italian model, the law as well, it didn't work out. That's why we tried to introduce very clearly, knowing from this practice that we had seen in Italy, that our law specifically says clients are to be assisted by their lawyers. I'm quite disappointed to see that lawyers try to bypass these obligations by presenting us as mediators a paper saying that they have been authorized by their company to represent them both as advocates and as the legal representatives. I want to stress this out because it seems that whatever the law says, there is always a way to bypass it, which is definitely contrary to what the law wanted to achieve. So it's really up to the judges now to decide whether mandatory mediation meetings that have taken place with only lawyers present, and I'm telling you, whenever this is the case, there is no second meeting, it always ends at the first meeting, whether this should be sanctioned or not. So I am so very much looking forward to reading to the new draft of the law of the Italian model, and I am so much looking forward to seeing our Greek judges judging these cases in the right direction. My question to you, Leonardo, is this. What do you think needs to be changed to make lawyers assist clients substantially during the first mediation meeting? Do we need to introduce minimum fees for the lawyers when they're present? Will the Italian, have you discussed this option in your new amendments that you're introducing? And I'm stopping here. Thank you very much.
Well, actually, is already about three years ago, the National Association of Lawyers, was called Consiglio Nazionale Forense, introduced a lawyer's fee for mediation advocacy. A lawyer fees only for lawyers to assist their clients in mediation. So it's clear that they can make money, and of course it is normal. I mean, lawyers, as most of you I think are lawyers, they have to and because it's a professional service in representing clients and in mediation. And I think this was important step for the National Association of Lawyers. But again, the law was, I think, was instrumental to push the lawyers to change mentalities. And it's not a problem of lawyers. The problem is, I always say, the lawyers are our clients. I mean, we work with lawyers. Lawyers are bringing us cases, and it's everywhere. I have, a long experience in the United States with our colleagues from JAMS, and these are one of the largest mediation service providers I think is the largest in United States. And all mediators tell me our clients are the lawyers, are not their clients. And now they realize that they can make money. And again, the problem is, at least in Italy, but I guess in Greece as well, lawyers, they didn't know about mediation. They have never taken a class in mediation in the School of Laws. So the law in this sense is instrumental to change the culture. Otherwise is impossible. I heard a lot of conferences that colleagues in good faith, mediators, say, you don't need a mandatory mediation law. You need to change the culture. You need to teach mediation. But it never happened in all other countries, except in the US and UK, where going to court is very risky and it's very costly if you have a bad case. So no one goes to the court or assisting court in the US if you have a good chance to lose a case. In Italy, at least in Italy, if you have a good chance to lose a case, you go in courts, you resist in courts. So basically, and this is changing, by the way, this is changing because now also some sanctions have been introduced, some interest being introduced. But in all our experience, again, it's not my opinion, it's not your opinion, Elena's opinion, is that data now, statistics speaks by themselves. and that in order to increase the number of mediation, you need some level of mandatoriness. And I think with these first meetings, again, we found the good balance. But again, I think is lawyers, they have to understand they can make money, professional money, and there is a role for them, for the lawyers, and mediation is not against against lawyers, and again, it's not against the courts as well. I think that the word, and this is our problem, alternative dispute resolution, the word alternatives is very misleading. Mediation is not an alternative to court. It's just the first step to a court. In order to have a strong system of mediation, you need to have a strong system in courts. So they help each other. They are two sides of the same coin, as we say. So there is another question, I think.
Good evening. Unfortunately, Miss Elena, she asked you the same question that I wanted to tell you, because like I am lawyer and mediator, I'm trying so hard because I believe to mediation, but unfortunately, I see that here in Greece, there is not reason that help in the choice of the mediation. For example, you tell us about discount in taxes. So I believe that it's a more important step about the choosing in the mediation from the lawyer. But I see the same thing that she already saw, Elena. Many, of course, they are our client, the lawyers, but they need us about the first, for example, meeting, because it's obligate for the court. We are only one step. We are not the choice for being another, for example, step, the mediation. So I wonder, like new, very new mediator, I would like for your experience to know how to be close in the lawyer, for example, that he has not, for example, the discount, the money, he can't win more money from mediation. That's the truth, okay? When, for example, I tell you an example. Anytime, all the times, I discuss with all the clients and the lawyers, because I'm searching that. I love the mediation. So I ask one lawyer, because he makes me with his eyes, no, because he wanted to see the other people that he doesn't want it to mediation. So he make me like that. So when they went, everybody from the room, I'd like to ask him why you didn't want it, why you are so negative with mediation. And she answered me, show me the money. And I didn't know how I don't, ξεπεράσω.
Overcome.
Yes. Yes. So I would like to ask from your experience, like mediator, how when you are in the beginning, you have not the help that you should have all you could have. How suppose to win the trust of lawyers for choosing the mediation? That's the most important that I need to hear for you and for your experience, because I feel very lonely, really. Thank you.
Well, so basically, This is, by the way, I think the importance also to have mediation centers, because one of the advantage is that we share experience, and I think I'm sure that in your association as well. And instead of single mediators, so I understand that sometimes you feel lonely because you cannot have anyone to with who's sharing your experience and to talk. Absolutely, at the beginning, we have been failed a lot of times, as mediators in our professions, but step by step, we can improve. Our model, our law on the first meetings actually is quite vague. And this is good. So basically, it's up to the mediator and to the parties decide how long will last the first meetings, and how deep you can go in mediation during the first meeting. So at the beginning, we as mediation centers, not everyone did the same. At the mediation center, we said we take the risk. So basically, we spend a good 1 hour, and we still do that in doing the first meetings. So basically, we are doing the mediation in 1 hour. We start mediation, we start joint meeting, we start separate meetings, but after maybe, and then we decide. What to risk again. Sometimes party, they will ask a second first meeting, what we call a second first meeting for free. So we have to think about, or we want to go ahead back to in our bank and or maybe I show up, but I don't know anything about the case. Please tell me, your request. I will talk with my boss and let's meet again in 1 month. Can you give me a second free first meeting? And at the beginning we did. So we invested a lot of our time in, it was a kind of a promotion. But what is critical, as I told you, is the presence of the parties themselves. If the lawyers, and by the way, and so for us was two main things. First of all, the parties, yes, the parties themselves, they should be present. And then in more than 8 years now, we had a strong jurisprudence from judges that they decide, even if the law is still a little bit vague, when the parties should be present or not, what is the nature of these first meetings. We had some judges, they made a very strong decision to tell what in Italian we call the equivalent of effective first meetings. So a lot of times judges, even if the parties themselves, for example, were not present, they say to the lawyers, you have to go back to do an effective mediation. So you need to negotiate, really. And again, mediation is not a panacea. It will not, if one party will stay in his or her position and without showing the money, as you say, mediation is not working, of course. But most of the time, again, 50% of the time, most of the time is working. Most of the times people will show the money, but again, the parties themselves, they should be present, because the parties themselves, they write a check. It's not the lawyers. Lawyers are important to assist from the legal point of view, but their decisions and sometimes it's a very hard decision to pay, to settle, to find the middle way. Sometimes is a win-win. I always tell the parties in the first meeting, we have to decide if this mediation, if it's a commercial mediation, we have to do like a divorce or a separation, okay? where parties, they settle and they will never see each other's for life, or we will be able to restore the relationship. On top of the settlement, the relationship will be restored. Sometimes is like a separation, a divorce, a nice divorce. Sometimes is I will be able to restore a relationship. Sometimes I fail, and the parties the right way is court. But again, the challenge, and you pointed out very well, the challenge is not becoming the first mandatory meeting a formality, where the lawyer said, please give me the paper, I want to go to the court.
Never.
Because this is a problem. If we become a formality, it will fail. And if this failed, it's very difficult to have a second chance to get back and having a new law on mediation. So for this reason, again, it's a matter of balanced. I think in Italy we found now with these amendments more, but even without these amendments right now, for example, in my center, just in Rome, we have, I think every day, about from 15 to 20 mediation, 15, 20, okay, every single day. Now, in this year and a half of pandemic, the number of mediations, I have to say, increased. I want to point out this. We are and we are a little bit sorry about that, I don't know, but we are in a business, in a sectors where we have been not affected by the COVID-19. Actually, we increased the number of mediations for two reasons. First of all, of course, courts have been closed, and right now, now, fortunately, the situation is much better. But up to now, the hearings every day in courts have been decreased. So, courts are more slow. So for this reason, lawyers, by the way, they realize the only way to make some money is going to mediation and not to go to courts. And of course, we had a lot of new cases coming from the economic relation from pandemic. For example, we had thousands of cases of renting of restaurants, hotels, shops. They cannot, of course, pay the rent anymore. I did a lot of cases from big brands of shops downtown Rome. They paid, I'm sure that everyone went in downtown Rome, in Via Condotti, in Piazza di Spagna. These shops paid about 100,000 euro per month, 100,000 euro per month, okay? Big brands. And of course, with the pandemic, they cannot pay anymore. They decrease the revenues by 95%. But the contracts, the owners of the shops, of the buildings, they want to get paid, and we solve thousands of these cases in mediations. So, and then another reasons is mediation online in video conference. At the beginning, I was very skeptical about mediating through Zoom, but fortunately, it works very well. The success rate for mediation in Zoom are exactly the same of mediation in person. Both mediators and lawyers and parties soon realized that mediation in Zoom and video conference works more or less at the same times. Of course, we had to change some techniques, but we have been closed, really the offices only and the business only for 1 month and a half last year during the first wave of the pandemic, but then we kept working every day, both physically and a lot online.
Thank you for your answer, but you helped me so much. I think very seriously to take a state permission to stay in Italy.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have a question from Ms. Torori. It's on chat. Which cases based in statistics or your experience are going to mediation in Italy and why?
You mean which have been more successful? So basically, real estate, division of assets, neighbors, disputes. I mean, disputes among people that lives in the same buildings that share cost. Again, renting, being very, very successful. What it didn't work so well, and this will change with our amendments, is cases related with banks and insurance company. But because of another reason, because banks and insurance companies are more consumer cases. So where in one side there is a big, of course, organization, the other side there is a consumer. And big organizations like banks and insurance companies, they have a problem in mediating with different settlements, cases that are the same. If you think about, in all the other cases, even business to business or, again, real estate, every mediation is different. Every case is different, every parties are different. So they can, even if the dispute case is the same, the parties are different. So they can decide in different terms. It's up to them. When there is a bank or insurance company involved, the cases are similar, very similar, and they cannot make have different results, different settlements. They are very afraid to make some precedent for them. And then another problem again is that most of the times representative of banks, they do not have the power to settle. A lot of times banks, they give to external lawyers the mandate to be present, and again, the external lawyers, they cannot have any tools, any leverage, for example, to restore the commercial relationship with the clients. For this reason, there will be a principle of amendments that we hope that we should change the consumer cases, again, consumer mediation in a different way, in order, and basically, if you are a bank, if you are an insurance company, because of the nature of your service, the nature of the market, you need to at least attend in good faith a mediation with people that represent the banks and insurance company, and people that know what they are talking about. They have some negotiation power to settle.
Thank you so much.
Any other question?
Σέργη, έχεις κλειστό το μικρόφωνο σου.
I had one question. Many thanks, Leonardo. I'm very pleased hearing that apart from Italian music, food, design, now it's Italian mediation.
It's Eurovision, and
Eurovision.
We won the Eurovision as well.
And football. So regarding mediation, please correct me, I consider that in life, to do something, you either have to believe in something, so that means culture, or to be forced, to have a motive together with sanction. Otherwise, I consider impossible for something to be done. So either you believe in something or you are forced to do it. Now, what is your opinion? For example, judges refer cases to mediation. They have motive to refer mediation. They get rid of cases. The cases referred to mediation count within the quota they have. Although, well, it's strange that judges are evaluated on the quantitative criteria only, how many cases, not the qualitative criteria. I mean, they should be evaluated on the quality of the decision, not of the quantity, how many. Okay, but I leave it aside. So the judges have a motive, okay? The lawyers are, I mean, it appears that lawyers do not have a motive in Italy. So if lawyers do not have a culture of mediation, why should they support mediation? I'm talking, and then you either decide to do mediation without lawyers, because otherwise they obstruct mediation instead of assisting, or if, I mean, the syndicate of lawyers, because all of us are lawyers, is so strong that, for example, the taxi drivers are very strong syndicate in Greece. Perhaps
we share a lot of same issues between Italy and Greece.
It's a problem. And fixing of prices is always anti-competitive. It's prohibited to fix prices. You may propose prices, but you cannot fix it. There are decisions of the competition authorities, I'm sure in Italy as well. So I would like to hear the thoughts. You either get rid of lawyers who do not believe in mediation, or if you have to have them because, I mean, they managed to legislate like that and lawyers' presence be compulsory, they have to give them a motive. Otherwise, we will not see seeing that examples of typical, for instance, first meetings, typical, just, I mean, to do it and go, I mean, to earn money, because if you don't have a motive, why do you do it? So what should be the law in Italy, for example, to enforce, to strengthen lawyers' assistance, if lawyers have to be there necessarily? What, according to your belief, should make lawyers support actually mediation, affect client positively? And because, I mean, if the claimant's lawyer does not have a motive, I mean, no matter about the defendant's lawyer, I mean, the defendant's lawyer wouldn't like at all to be there. I mean, let's leave things to a court. And after 5-10 years, I get more money. It's more beneficial. Litigation is still more beneficial to lawyers. So what should do mediation more beneficial? Thank you.
Well, this is a €1 million questions, but first of all, I think, yes, the lawyers should be involved. I've never seen in any other jurisdictions where mediation growth without the presence, intervention of lawyers. So I think first step is lawyers should be are an important stakeholder. Maybe I think that the three main stakeholders, I've done them, you know, as Elena told, I was a little bit, not behind the scenes, but I was giving some you know, advice to Elena in Greece, but also I was involved in a lot of jurisdictions in drafting mediation reform. So this is kind of, you know, my specialties now. And I learned that there are three main stakeholders in this field: judges, lawyers, and Minister of Justice. Not really mediators. Mediators, of course, but are coming forth. So you need, first of all, you need a leading role of, usually in our jurisdiction, the Minister of Justice. In other, could be the Chief Justice. In Africa, there is the equivalent of the Minister of Justice. But there is a single person. So the single person, the Minister of Justice herself or himself, and of course, who is around him, must understand the value of mediation. Because again, I've never seen in our jurisdictions a mediation that grows without a legal framework. And the fact that must be, again, mandatory, or have a level of mandatory, there are a lot, hundreds of thousands of policy or mediator of mandatory policies in our jurisdictions, in our society, of good practice that must be mandatory. I'm thinking on education, of course. Do you think that if we make education for kids voluntary, all kids will go to school? No. There are again hundreds of mandatory rules for making our life, you know, better. You know, read the traffic lights on the street and so on. So I don't see that is a scandal or something weird to make mandatory mediation. And all these idea of mandatory mediation against the natural mediation, I think it doesn't work, and he proved that it didn't work. The voluntary natural mediation can live of the settlement, of course. The voluntary nature of the settlement can live with the mandatory attempts. Is not a contradiction in terms, absolutely. I can tell you in Italy that lawyers were very strong against this, the law at the beginning. They changed their mind first in 2013 when there was an amendment that made the presence of lawyers mandatory when mediation is mandatory. At beginning in 2010 was voluntary, and of course this was a nice way to I'm not saying I don't find another good word of not kind of bribing the lawyers, but basically pushing the lawyers to be present in mediation. And then I think another, at least in Italy, as I was saying, is that every bar association has a mediation center. And they make money. The mediation center makes money, good revenue, that help to decrease the annual fees of the bar for all the lawyers. So basically, the only source, every bar in Italy, I'm sure that in Greece as well, every city has a bar, and the bar has now two main sources of revenues: the fees from the lawyers and the fees from selling the mediation service. So more mediation service they sell, more they decrease the annual fees for lawyers. And I think they had an effect. But the beginning was because it was mandatory. Now it's still mandatory, but they realized that is not too bad. That is making money. Of course, you cannot tell a lawyer, and I know that you agree with me. You cannot send a message to lawyers that you need to mediate. You will lose money, but you feel better, and you cannot send this message. The message could be mediation is a different way to assist your clients. Is not is not alternative. And this is our fault, I think. We took this alternative from the Americans, okay, and it was very misleading. This is not alternative to a court. Is a different tool, a tool that you can use it. And if you solve the case in mediation, maybe, for sure, I have to say, you can bill less fee, you can charge less, but at least you charge in 2 months, in 3 months, not in 5 years. And if you divide the fees by the hours in mediation or in courts, the fee per hour is much higher in mediation. You work less in mediation as lawyer, charge less, but make more money in a short term rather than in 5 years, 6 years. Because then a lot of lawyers tell me in 6 years, 7 years, parties, they don't want to pay me anymore. They, at the beginning, they were willing to pay a fee. They're willing to invest in courts, in litigation in court. But after 4, 5, 6 years in a civil commercial cases, a lot of lawyers, they have problems to get their clients paid. So at the end of the day, I don't see any other possibility of rather than mandatory first meetings. There is no other jurisdictions in Europe and around Europe with our similar legal systems that they increase the number of mediation with poor voluntary approach. Never happens.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Υπάρχουν άλλες ερωτήσεις? There is one in the chat, Leonardo.
If there is no other question, I would like to say something.
Μισό λεπτό, Κατερίνα. There is one in chat. Yuli Christonaki says, there is no doubt the lawyer's role is more than necessary, but I believe that in Greece, focusing on training the lawyers in mediation advocacy instead of expanding the mediators training is fundamental.
Absolutely, and this is, but this is a long-term goal. It's not in the law, but for the first time, our new Minister of Justice is doing something with the Minister of Justice of the university. We have a Minister for Universities, and the idea is introducing a class, a mandatory again class in the School of Law for new lawyers in teaching mediation advocacy for students and lawyers. This is something very important. Of course, it's a long-term goal, but this is very important.
Κατερίνα.
Ναι, υπάρχει τίποτα άλλο από άλλο?
Όχι, δεν ξέρω.
Leonardo, I fully agree with all what you said, and I would like to add something. I take the risk to be considered as very romantic, but I will dare to say that, as you said before, and as all of us believe, it is a question of culture. Lawyers should focus on our main duty vis-a-vis the clients? Isn't it that we have to protect the interests of the client? Do we have to give them the best opportunities? If the answer is yes, and I believe it is, besides money, because we all speak about money, but we forget the ethical viewpoint of the lawyer's assistance to their clients, which is to give them the opportunity to solve their dispute in the quickest, cheapest, and better and best way, giving them the opportunity to keep in touch with the other parties and to continue working with them, or in any case, not to have bad relations. So if lawyers remember, and if we make them remember what is the first duty of the lawyer, then possibly they will become more prepared to assist their clients and to lead them to mediation. Of course, this is a question of culture and possibly, as I said before, a romantic viewpoint, but I strongly believe to this, although I know that it is very difficult to achieve. This is one thing I wanted to say. The other thing is a question, Leonardo, regarding the mandatory mediation in Italy. In Italian law, because I have dealt with Italian law since many years, I was in Paris at the Congress of the International Mediation Association when the new Italian law was promulgated. I remember it was September the 20th of 2013, and an Italian colleague announced this to us. And then I had the opportunity to become acquainted to the Italian law. So you have in Italy provided mandatory mediation for X number of cases, which are mentioned in the law. In Greece, we have followed the Italian model, we say, and it is so because in substance, we have followed the Italian model, but the law states, the words used in law allow the first mandatory meeting to become, as you said before, a formality. You said that we should not do of the first mandatory meeting a formality. Unfortunately, this is the case. It is not something which we see rarely. On the contrary, lawyers call the mediator and say how long it will last, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or prepare please the document for us to sign it and to leave. This is not the aim of the law. And I would like you, Leonardo, to explain what is the reason you see for which we have called this mandatory first meeting, and not mandatory mediation as you have done in Italy.
Well, the problem is always that if it's full mandatory, there could be a problem of inconstitutionality, because I mean could be a barrier to access to justice. So for this, that actually was our first law in 2010. At that time was not a first mandatory mean, it was a full mandatory. Means that the parties had to pay in full the mediations before going to court. And so we had a problem that the lawyers challenged that first law before the constitutional courts. However, the constitutional court declared that part unconstitutional, but not on the merits of the law, but only because was not really approved by the parliament, but only from the government. But so we never actually solved that problem. But this is what I said is important, the details, for not becoming the first meetings a formality. I think that, and for this reason, a lot of judges called for an effective first mandatory meeting, means that the parties themselves, they have to attend. We thought about, but didn't pass, to have a time, a minimum limits of time. So basically having at least half an hour of this meeting for with the presence of the parties. But then the committee, the Minister of Justice, they thought it was not useful, because in any case we had most of the cases we spent half an hour, 1 hour in each session. I have to say that maybe it helped mediation center, having mediators within mediation centers, it helped a lot, because every mediation center has its own rules for the mediation process, approved by the Minister of Justice. So there are some mediation centers that has rules with minimum of time for the first meetings. And we tried in the rules to, what now is in amendments of the law, to introduce the presence of the parties. And then I have to say, there is this willing of the mediators and the mediation centers to push to the opt-out. So I've never seen, I mean, only few mediators or few mediation centers, they take this as a formality. But most of us, they spent hours, not paid, because I mean, with 50 euro is not, and to make this first meeting a kind of a real mediation. And again, I think the key is the presence of the parties. Because if only the lawyers are and start the discussion between the two parties, even if they start to fight a little bit, is okay, because most of the times the parties, they never met, at least met to try to solve the dispute in the first meetings. And again, now 50% of the times both parties, they show up in the first meetings. And more than 50% of the times they agree to go ahead with full mediation, that becoming a voluntary mediation. So what I say that in Italy, we do not have mandatory mediation. We have mandatory first meetings, but then voluntary mediation when the parties, they go ahead with full mediation.
Thank you very much. However, Leonardo, I still believe that there is a difference between Italian law and Greek law. First, I wanted to say that according to the new law on mediation, the presence of the parties is necessary, with some exceptions. Now, regarding what we do in the first mediation meeting, the law says that the mediator has to inform the parties, to tell them what is mediation, what they can expect, what they can do. As a matter of fact, the law itself gives to this first mandatory meeting the character of a formality, because the parties have been already informed about mediation, or they are supposed to have been informed about mediation by the lawyers. And when you said that we could not make of mediation a mandatory one because it would be anti-constitutional, I fully agree with you, but still mediation is always an opt-in, opt-out proceeding. We can leave whenever we want. So I think that in the Italian law, you do not say the first mandatory meeting, you say mandatory mediation. Am I correct?
Yes and not, actually. I think, I don't know, but your question is very on the topic and is a challenge, is absolutely the challenge. I give you an example. A few years ago in Italy, we had in labor cases, in labor disputes, a mandatory attempt to mediation, but was not done by professional mediators, was done by employee of the labor agency, kind of. Or for example, in Italy, we have a mandatory attempt of a judge in some divorce cases, family cases, where the president of the courts will try to attempt mediation in couples. All these procedures failed because there was not a professional. They do not have a time. But what you are saying is absolutely important. Do not transform these first attempt as a formality. Again, I think it helped in our law that it was not clear in what the mediator should do in the first meeting. And for this reason, we have all mediators in Italy, we have interpreted these first meetings as a kind of full mediation. So we risked our time. But again, what is really key is the presence of the parties, where the parties can talk, can listen to the mediator, because sometimes I have to say that a lot of times actually, I heard a client after my introductory speech, usually, introduction of the mediator, a client turned to his lawyer or her lawyer and say, "You didn't tell me about this. You didn't really inform about what in mediation can we do, how much will cost. You didn't inform that even if they opt in, is not is cheap in any case, it's not expensive. You didn't a lot of times." So basically, for example, one provision that didn't worked in Italy is, I think we have the same, I think we share the same in Greece, is this mandatory the fact that the lawyers should inform the parties, their clients, about mediation in writing,
Yes.
in the signature, and that was a formality. That was usually what the lawyers they do is when they get a case from the clients, please give me two signature, one for the privacy for the GDP and the one for that we inform you about mediation. Just sign, okay. So again, this is a balance. While I am convinced that the lawyers should be present in mediation, lawyers are very important in mediation, but on the other side, we should not let them to convey our message, what mediation is. We should not let the lawyers to sell mediation. We, as mediators, we should sell mediations to their clients. So again, is a good balance, and this is the goal of the first meeting. But if the parties are not present, we cannot, like we are like doctors, we cannot cure the patients if the patient is not there, he's not in the table. We need them. we need them to do our job. Because at the end of the day, I remember, I mean, people, they at beginning in mediation, they have their own view of the dispute, they have own view of the cases, and what is our job is changing their view of the case, changing their view of the disputes, try to find some, propose some settlement. But if they are not present, we cannot work. We cannot work through a representative, through our lawyers. This is what is important, to have them in our mediation rooms.
Very understandable. Thank you very much. And I have one last question, and then I stop. You said that if the parties cannot agree regarding the mediator, they ask a mediation center to designate a mediator. And what if they do not accept, they do not agree on the mediator, which has been designated by the mediation center?
Well, they have, this is a very good question, but it's more theoretical than practical. They have never seen, there is very, very few exceptions where the parties, they do not agree on the mediator names. Very few have done thousands and thousands, even in our center, in different other centers. 99% of the times, we as mediation centers, we appoint the mediator. There's no problem. Again, mediation is not arbitration, so usually, and we have all the advantage to appoint the right mediators for the right case, because again, as I mentioned to you first, we compete on the quality of the mediators. I think, I don't know, you have, your law, correct me if I'm wrong, choose to go more on single mediators than mediation centers. I know, I think that I'm not sure, this is not that, but I think that mediation centers are better. The model around mediation center are better for a couple of reasons. First, are easy to control and to monitor. The Ministry of Justice, they monitor mediation centers. The quality is more or less the same, and every mediation center has at least 5 mediators in the law, but usually they have hundreds of mediators in their list, so it's impossible to find a mediator that is not suitable for the case. And in our law, maybe you know that the mediation centers is chosen by the plaintiff. The defendant, the invited, they cannot change mediation center. It's the law that said the competent mediation center is the one chosen by the plaintiff. And we have some law about some provisions about in order to avoid conflict of interest, we cannot give discount to one party and not to the other party. So we need to keep our independence. I think that is better. And again, we have only few cases, even if there is a provision in the law where basically one party can refuse the mediator and ask the person in charge of the mediation center to choose another mediator. So, but I've received only very few. I'm responsible for, of course, for my mediation center, for IDR Center. And again, now we do more than 6,000 mediation per year. And I receive only maybe 3 or 4 times the request to change mediators, usually because they did something wrong, or they start to fight between mediators and lawyers, or some fight, to have some different opinions. But again, no more maybe than 3 or 4 times.
Thank you very much, Leonardo. In Greece, we have another escape way. if the parties do not agree regarding the mediator, or if they designate a third party to designate the mediator, and they do not agree on the third party, we have no provision like the one you stated before, saying that the plaintiff chooses the mediation center to appoint a mediator. So if they do not agree on the third party who could designate the mediator, then we can escape the danger to have mediation collapse by filing an application with the Ministry of Justice, as a matter of fact, with the Central Commission of Mediation of the Ministry of Justice, asking the Commission to designate the mediator, and the mediator designated by the Commission is in charge, and it cannot be contested by the parties.
But how many times this happened? So
often, very often, as far as I know.
In our model, I think it was very good that the courts and the Ministry of Justice had nothing to do with the management of mediation, because courts, they don't have the time, judges, as I say, they don't have time. So the Ministry of Justice, the only role is to monitoring, the accreditation process of the centers and the mediators, and of course getting complaints. The Ministry of Justice, they're getting complaints from the clients sometimes. But our criteria, I think, was quite smart, that you cannot change the mediation center chosen by the plaintiff. So basically.
Very smart. And I would like to add a clarification that what I have said before is valid only for the first mandatory meeting, not for full mediation. The Central Commission does not intervene, and we cannot file any application asking for the designation of a mediator in case of full mediation. Thank you.
Δεν βλέπω άλλες ερωτήσεις.
Στο chat κάτι βλέπω, τι είναι?
Ευχαριστίες είναι φυσικά.
So, but let me ask a question. Are you envision to change the law? There will be any process to amend the law? Any sooner? Just call me.
We wish.
Not yet.
We
the
wish.
law was promulgated in November 2019. So for the moment being, we do not speak about modification.
Okay.
And if you deduct the COVID period, it's a very fresh law.
Okay.
So I see many thanks to you, Leonardo, on chat. I think there are no other questions. Everything was very clear, due also to the proximity between Italian and Greek law. And so I have to thank you once more, very, very much for your presence here today. And we would like very much to see you in person when you next come to Athens. It will be our pleasure. And please let us know. We will know through Elena anyhow when you will be coming. And I wish you all the best with all my heart.
Thank you. Maybe we can, you can organize a conference in Mykonos or in some of the islands.
And
now you have a COVID-free island. So we heard that you have a COVID-free island. So yeah, wishing you.
Leonardo, have you heard about Pelion? The Mount Pelion? Because we should not speak always about Mykonos, Paros, and Santorini, because believe me, Pelion is more beautiful. We have the sea, we have the mountain. When you will come, I will invite you there, and then you will tell me your impressions.
Okay, my wife is hearing me, you, so and my family as well. So,
Of course, it goes without saying that she will be invited as well.
great, great.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
for
again.
everyone. Thank you. It's always a pleasure and an honor to discuss and to change idea and experience with all of you. And please, let's keep in touch. I will again, as I said, in a few days I will send you the draft in English of the amendments, and it could be, I think, useful. It could be useful for discussion, at least in
Great,
setting.
great. Thank you very much. All
Bye
the
bye.
best. Bye
Ciao,
bye.
Leo.
Have a nice time.
Ciao,
Ciao.
ciao a tutti.
Ciao.
Ciao.